Ra Ra Aman Ra 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 Aman Ra.
Amon Ra.
He's fantastic.
And welcome back to a fantasy football podcast. I'm your host, Jono, and this is my co-host, Chris. Today, you're tuning into our NFC North breakdown. At the end of this one, we'll be halfway through the league. If you have not seen our other breakdowns of the AFC North and the NFC and AFC West, you should go take a look at those too. We got some good insight on the different players that we're looking into for each team and the total breakdown on the offenses alone. Before we jump into the AFC or NFC North here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button so you get all the episodes, because if you haven't seen the other ones, you obviously weren't hitting the notification button before. That being said, let's jump into it, and we'll start with the Detroit Lions, Motor City.
Love it.
9-8 last year. Vegas has their win odds at 9.5, so they obviously like this team from last year, and they like them moving forward. Big thing is Jared Goff at the helm had a fantastic season, finished off at QB 10, 4,400 yards, 29 touchdowns. I think he could have had a couple more touchdowns too. Obviously, 17 of the team's 17 touchdowns went to one running back alone on the goal line. So I think Jared Goff could have done some himself. But the crazy stat to me about Jared Goff is the last 6 weeks of the season, he had 4 weeks inside the top 7. He had a QB4 finish, QB4 finish, QB2 finish, and a QB7 finish. Yeah, that's exactly why. That's exactly
See that
why.
there?
So that being
Thank you,
said,
Jared Goff. Brought to you by Jared.
Said,
I went to Jared. All right.
He went to Jared.
I went to Jared.
Jared Goff is still, the fact that he is going 115th overall QB 17 is surprising to me, because he did it last year. I think he could do it again this year. I think he's quietly a sneaky late round QB sleeper pick. So if you want to fade QB, he's your target to go for in a little bit later rounds, because he's going to give you a good floor with obviously you saw a great ceiling in the last 6 weeks and helped Chris win a championship last year. So is Jared Goff somebody that you have on your radar? I know last year you went for Jalen Hurts, but in the past you have faded quarterback quite a couple times. Is this a guy that you would be fading quarterback and looking to grab?
Well, let me say, if I were to fade quarterback this season, Jared Goff would be a priority add for me. We've talked about it before, where I believe in, if I'm not going to get one of the top end quarterbacks, or a real mobile quarterback that has a lot of upside, what I'm going to do is go and grab 2 of the mid-tier guys, and I'm going to rotate and play them based on matchup. I think Jared Goff is one of those guys. He's high on my priority. You got to love this offense, and that's what I love most about him is they had a top 5 offense last year in terms of passing yards, in terms of scoring. Their defense just, their record was a lot better last year with 9-8, but the defense still has a long way to go, and they're going to be having to shoot out against most people. We've seen probably the most electric football game of all time. Jared Goff was involved in a shootout with Kansas City.
It's still one of the most fun games I've ever watched.
It was fantastic. I mean, maybe the playoff game between the Bills and the Chiefs is up there. But that, we've seen Jared Goff be able to spread the ball out, and I really like his weapons this year. I think that not only do you have a receiving back in Jahmyr Gibbs, but they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They brought back Marvin Jones, Denzel Mims they traded for, who I think is going to be a sneaky guy that you can reach on. You probably pick off waivers. No one's going to draft him. But I think he's a guy that could step up into that DJ Chark role. And then, Jameson Williams, who is suspended for the first 6 weeks of the season. And then you add on the rookie Sam Laporta as well as a pass-catching tight end. They got a lot of weapons there in the receiving game. So Goff is absolutely someone I would, if I'm going to zero quarterback strategy, and I'm not going to draft one till late, he's prior. I would draft him over Derek Carr.
He's going over Derek Carr. He's going over Jimmy G right now. Well, here's my question. I'll tell you who's going around. I'll tell you who's going. Yeah, he's going over all those guys right now. Yeah. So he's ADP 115 overall. So the people that are before him, because that's a 10 position difference between him and Russ Wilson.
Yeah.
So if you're saying you're going to try and get two guys late, are you going to get him as your number one, and then you're going to get someone like Derek Carr, Jimmy G, CJ Stroud, Kyler Murray, like one of those guys later? Or are you going to try and go for somebody like Tua, who you're probably getting around earlier, or Dak, and then going with someone like Jared Goff here? Because the problem with those middle round guys is Aaron Rodgers is 112, Kirk Cousins 106, 108 Daniel Jones, 113 Geno Smith, 110 Anthony Richardson, and 115 Jared Goff. They're all in the same round pretty much. So your odds of getting to those guys you have to get lucky on a turn and go back to back. Otherwise, you're not pairing that middle of the meat pack there.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw the ADP out the window on this, because you're gonna assume that 7 teams already have a quarterback that they drafted, so they're not gonna go and get one of these guys. So yeah, you could go back to back rounds and get two of these guys. I would take Tua over him. I would take Geno over him.
What about Rodgers, Cousins, Daniel Jones?
Rodgers, Cousins, I would take over him. Daniel Jones, I would not.
Okay.
So I would have Jared Goff over Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has the upside of running, but I really like the offense. Again, he's not going to go and kill it for you. Like, he's not going to throw up monster numbers, but
he did.
He's going to be consistent. I mean, he did in the final 6 weeks.
I loved it. It was a slow start to the season, but he ended up doing it. So that being said, there's also been some changes, as you mentioned, a couple of the weapons. There's some new faces in here, and a lot of them both happen to be at running back. So you have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs here running the ball for them. You have David Montgomery assuming, as we all are assuming, the Williams role. The Jamal Williams role, which is going to be your early down, short yardage back, goal line back, a career under 4 yards per carry rusher. He had 3.9 yards per carry last year. Obviously, he played for Chicago for the past 3 seasons. A tough place for him to run at all in. Assuming that Williams role, you're going to want a guy who's going to get goal line opportunities. That being said, Jahmyr Gibbs is the spark here. Like, he's the one who's going to have a lot more electric plays, a lot of big ability. But before I divert from David Montgomery, we got to remember that this guy's great at breaking tackles and getting people to miss tackles. He's one of the top year after year for his first 3 seasons for broken tackles. But that's purely for the simple fact that he's in Chicago. He's getting hit at the line or behind the line of scrimmage each time. But that being said, he's elusive with that. So you get him in a good line, which Detroit's going to be one of the top lines in the league this year. Do you want a piece of that running back room? And I think David Montgomery is the one you're going to get at a value, pretty much at a sale. And he has a chance to get 8 to 10 touchdowns. And I don't see 17 like Jamal Williams had last year, but if he gets you 8 touchdowns as your RB2, I mean, that's exact numbers you're looking for. 808, even as a flex position, you could get him so late.
Yeah, you would draft him as a flex position or in like a 0 running back strategy where he's going to be the second, like he'll be your RB2 in a 0 running back strategy. Exactly. And I think he's going to be just fine there. Yeah. I want a piece of David Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs obviously has way more upside, I think, than Montgomery does. But I said this from when, the draft happened and really early on in our videos. I said that David Montgomery is going to be the guy there. And I still think that. I still think Jahmyr Gibbs, I think a lot of people put a lot of weight on rookies when they come into the league, and especially with Jahmyr Gibbs and his comps to Alvin Kamara and what he can do there. And listen, like if there's established veterans there, it's really, really hard for rookies to come in and just be like, I'm going to take 80% of the touches. So Jahmyr Gibbs is not going to get 80% of the touches. If anything, he's going to get a 50-50 split in the backfield. And like you said, he's not going to get the goal line. David Montgomery's going to get the goal line work there. And I want the goal line because this is an explosive offense. So I want the goal line guy that's going to get in the touch. Last year we saw with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, who was the guy to own there? Jamal Williams was, not DeAndre Swift. And it doesn't mean DeAndre Swift had a bad season, but we liked this offense for a reason. And I talked about it last year. Like, I liked the running back position there, and I was more on Swift than I was Jamal Williams. And who knew that he was going to have a 17 touchdown season, but he also ran for 1,000 yards, right? And so,
Well,
yeah, even if
that was all in due
it,
part for Swift and his injuries, because I was high on Swift too. I think Swift had an opportunity. Swift stats, when you look at it on paper and you look at his yards per carry and his yards per reception, there's some up there with the best numbers in the game. He just can't stay on the field, and that's unfortunate for him. So I wish him luck in
yeah.
Philadelphia, but not really, because I'm a Giants fan.
Yeah, obviously the better value here, I think, is going to be David Montgomery, because you're going to get him like 6 or 7 rounds later than Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going as the RB14, so he's going to be going 36 overall in the 3rd round. So yeah, I mean, if you already have a running back,
I mean,
David
Montgomery's running back 27, 76th overall. So you're looking at literally 8th round value right there.
Right. So 5 round difference in drafting. Huge. And so, like, I think Gibbs is a great target for if you're in the first half of the first round and you go running back. He's great on the 3rd round turn if you can get him there. But I don't think people should be reaching for him. I just don't think he's going to get the workload that people, he's going to be an explosive player, but he wasn't an every down back at Alabama. And most of it's been a long time since we've seen an every down back at Alabama. And so him coming into the league and just commanding all the touches, I don't see it happening, especially with David Montgomery. They're like, yeah, knock on David Montgomery all you want on his stats, but he was in Chicago, like you said. He was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. That the offense was anemic, and he wasn't getting the touches because they weren't in games, and so they had to throw the ball in the second halves of games. Like their defense wasn't very good. They were in rebuilding for the last 3-4 years. So yeah, I mean, I want both of these guys. Like, it's not like I'm fading off of Gibbs. It's just, where can I get him at a value that I want him? And then if I don't get him, being able to go 5 rounds later and getting David Montgomery is great. Love it.
Yeah, so Jahmyr Gibbs, 36 overall, RB14. He's going to assume that DeAndre Swift role. Everybody is thinking that. I mean, here's the only thing I do have to say on the whole thing that you say he didn't ran much in Alabama. Neither did Travis Etienne his senior year. Neither did, even at Etienne never went over 200 carries in his career in Clemson. So in a season. So I mean, look what he did with Jacksonville last year. I just think the guy's electric. I think he's going to be good. I could see him 3rd down, splitting series here and there. He's going to be used late game, 2-minute drills, and in in positions where they're playing from behind, they're going to need a score. I could see them using him. So
for sure. That's where I like him.
Yeah, well, here's the thing: is if you want to go running back heavy, Jahmyr Gibbs is your perfect RB2. If you're towards like that 1, 2, 3, 4 pick in the draft. The other opportunity is if you go wide receiver first. He's the one that I don't want to be my RB1 based on his ADP. I'm going to go with somebody else like Najee Harris at RB1 first, or Travis Etienne. And then if I want to grab him on the turn, like you said, in that 3rd round, early turn, you could do that. Biggest player on this team on the offense that showed up last year as the wide receiver 9 in standard PPR, he was 7, was Amon-Ra St. Brown. What are your thoughts on him going into this season with question marks around him again?
Ra ra Amon-Ra, ra ra Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra.
He's fantastic. This is probably the one I'm kicking myself, and I mean, him and Jefferson are the ones I'm kicking myself for dropping in their rookie year in the first couple picks. And
he's saying that because we played a keeper league that he could have kept those 2 guys that he just aforementioned.
Yeah. And but yeah, St. Brown is so good. He eats up volume. He breaks tackles. He has explosive playability after the catch. He's a complete receiver, and he's going to be the number 1 target here still. And we saw it throughout the entire season last year, and we saw it through the second half of his rookie campaign, where he's just a volume guy, and he's going to eat up targets. So you got to absolutely love him. He's a guy that you should be targeting in the 2nd round for sure. I would probably take him. Yeah, throw me some names of guys he's going around, and then because there's some.
Well,
it's hard for me. It's hard for me to make an argument outside of. I think he could be a top 5 wide receiver in the league.
Well, yeah, he finished 9 last year. He had 98 yards inside the 20, 6 touchdowns in the red. So all his touchdowns were red zone touchdowns. The crazy thing to me was he was 6th in target. That's number 6. Jersey accent coming out. 6th in targets inside the 5 for all receiving positions. That includes tight ends. So that just tells, and I believe running backs too was the list I was looking at. 6th in targets inside the 5 for definitely pass catchers, which is a huge number because touchdowns equal more points than yardage do in your fantasy football league. So you're talking about a huge red zone target. And I believe last year there were definitely 2, but I believe there were 3 times where he was stopped at the goal line that would have convert those to touchdowns. He's got 9 touchdowns in the season. He jumps himself up, I believe, ends up being wide receiver, I think 6 at that point. So to me, if you look at the people that are around him, you've got Jalen Waddle right before him. I don't think he has the ceiling that Waddle has, but he's got a better floor and more consistency than Jalen Waddle. So I'd like him over Waddle. He's right next to Devonta Smith, and to me, they're kind of almost the same player, except one's the number 1 and one's the number 2 or 1B. And then he's behind Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, respectively. I think Devontae Adams for sure, and Garrett Wilson were playing on his ceiling in that situation. I agree. I think you could see him at being wide receiver 9 rather than being wide receiver 11 going into this season. But in terms of wide receivers,
I probably would take him over.
Go ahead.
I would take him over Waddle and Devonta Smith.
The only reason,
Devonta Smith.
Yeah, if you're taking him as your wide receiver 1, I'm taking him over Waddle and Devonta Smith. If I'm taking him as a wide receiver 2, you'd be happy there too as well. I would take a chance on Waddle as a wide receiver 2, and I love Waddle. I have him on my team, but I just like the game week winning ability that he has. He has the ability to literally score 30 points in a week, and not every receiver in the league has that ability. That's why I would go for Waddle as a wide receiver 2, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is my wide receiver 1. I'm definitely doing that over top of Waddle, and I'm doing it over top of Devonta Smith as well, for sure. Other wide receivers on this team last year, they were able to feed a little bit to Chark, feed a little bit around to why am I drawing a blank here? Who was across from Chark last year?
Cephas was there. Raymond was there. Josh Reynolds.
I mean, there were a lot of other fillers. Hold on. But to me, there's 2 guys here that stand out as a secondary receiver that they're going to need to use. And I like one more than the other because you could get him for absolutely free. And that's Marvin Jones Jr. Marvin Jones Jr. was a Detroit Lion previously and was successful at Detroit. Jameson Williams is the other one. To me, Jameson Williams is a flashy, big-time receiver. He takes the top off of defenses. He was a deep threat. He showed it last year. He had 1 touchdown catch and just missed another one. But when you looked at the Jared Goff stats from last year, he was not a big downfield passer and nor efficient that downfield as well. So the attempts were low for downfield passing. I don't like that in terms of Jameson Williams, who's probably going to have a low volume, high output type of games if they decide to go deep. Marvin Jones Jr. could be the benefactor of the veteran lining up and another sure hands. Because to me, he's almost like Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're almost the same type of receiver. But Marvin Jones, a little smaller and was able to go a little bit deeper, a little faster at times in his career. That being said, he's a sure hands guy. He proved it in Jacksonville with 3 other guys around him. He still had a decent season in Jacksonville. I could see him ending up the second guy, wide receiver 2 for the team stats wise by the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you with Jameson Williams. Like, I don't really want to draft him. I get the big playability. He's missing 6 games, so you're going to be drafting him late. Even for a dynasty perspective, like he was back for a big portion of last year, and what did he have? 1 reception for 41 yards and a touchdown. And he's just not. He needs the big play, and he needs, he's a spark athlete, so he can take 1 reception and do that. But is that good enough is he going to be able to do that every week? Because if he's only able to get 4 targets a game, what can he do with it? He's going to have to be super efficient with the targets that he gets. every now and again, there's moves that teams make every year that seem like do nothing moves, and I think the Lions made one this year where they traded for Denzel Mims. I think he is a really underrated talent. I got to watch him. Being a Jet fan, I got to watch him, and it's just so unfortunate with him and Elijah Moore that they weren't able to really emerge as talent in the league because the passing offense, was so just absolutely piss poor. And Denzel Mims is a sneaky guy that you're not going to, he's going to go undrafted. Again, you can pick him up off waivers. You can pick him up as your last pick. It's a guy you shouldn't sleep on because he is a freak athlete and he's very, very, very talented. And he kind of fits into the DJ Chark role. Whereas you're right, Marvin Jones is kind of a little bit more of a similar style runner or similar style receiver as Amon-Ra St. Brown. Whereas Denzel Mims can go out there and get it. He's going to run post routes on you. He's going to go and win 50-50 balls. And you just never put in that position. I did a short on him. Has a career average, and I know the sample size isn't huge, but he has a career average of 16.9 yards per catch. Like, he's a down the field receiver. And the Jets couldn't throw the ball downfield. And
I think he's going to take that Jameson Williams role to start the season. And I mean, Jameson Williams better watch his back because, in my opinion, you got to find a way to keep yourself on the field. And he's done nothing but find ways to keep himself off the field. And even when on the field, he hasn't done anything maybe that impressive. And he's been rusty in camp from what I've seen. So I like the Mims call. I like the Jones as a good wide receiver too to start the season for at least the first 6 weeks.
Sure.
But here's the thing. You want to try and get somebody like that, and you get them for free, or you get them off the waivers, because Detroit Lions were 10th in attempts in passing last year, and they were, I think, 7th in passing total yardage last year. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to catch 4,500 yards from Jared Goff.
Yeah.
He's going to catch 1,200 yards from Jared Goff or more. But that being said, there's still going to be somewhere upwards of 3,000 yards that are going to have to go to somebody. And you got Jahmyr Gibbs and who else? So that brings up Sam Laporta. And to me, Sam Laporta is the last piece we'll talk about before we move on to our next team. And he is going to be a free pick. I mean, he's flying up the boards because people have said he's looked good in camp. To me, he's a second tight end on your team if you're going to go with 2 tight ends on those later guys to take a shot on a rookie. Personally, I'd rather go with Dalton Kincaid if I'm going to go for a rookie. But Sam Laporta is proving himself the number one guy as a tight end there. He's going to get his. They like to throw the tight end. And as Chris has said, time in and time out, if you don't get the top guys, it's just a bunch of mush at the bottom. So if you're going to go for 2 guys, why not take a chance on a team that had TJ Hawkinson and had a successful career at, and Jared Goff seemed to like his tight ends last year, and guy Sam Laporta that was very good in yards after the catch too as well. And that's what he was known for. So again, I'm not taking him as my starting tight end. I take him as my second tight end up the board and hope that it hits at some point. So
yeah, let's move on. I'll give a shout out to 99 Franco on Instagram. Me and him had kind of back and forth today on kind of Dalton Kincaid and kind of my opinion. I think Sam Laporta is one of those rookies that is coming into a really good passing situation, and that can emerge as a rookie tight end and be effective. Especially if you're going to be drafting him in the 13th round, he's going to go for essentially free. So that's a guy you can target. But thanks, Frank, for reaching out. Love interacting with our followers and our subscribers. We appreciate all of you guys.
Yeah, feel free to leave a comment if you guys want to get up on the podcast. We're happy to shoot it that way. You could also send us an email at thestandardfantasy@gmail.com. And moving on to the Green Bay Packers, 8-9 last year. Vegas has them at 7.5 wins, which is high expectations for a team that just lost a future Hall of Famer. So let's just jump into this here. I don't even want to go over the stats from last year because the stats from last year are going to mean nothing in terms of the passing games. Throw them completely out the window. But Jordan Love, ADP 151, QB 26. Nobody's looking to draft him highly. He may be somebody you want to draft in a dynasty league to take a shot at because he is in a area where you're playing for the Green Bay Packers. It's a historically known QB team. They obviously liked him enough for Aaron Rodgers to walk, but again, you're not drafting this guy happily. So
They've had two quarterbacks for the last 30 years.
Yeah, so why not go with a guy that they trusted when, just like they trusted Aaron Rodgers behind Favre? That's what all I'm saying. Is like they got to like something in him here. So
It's
magic happens in Lambeau. So 2021 week 9, he had a full game without Aaron Rodgers. That's the only stats I can give you right here. He was 19 for 34 for 190, a touchdown and a pick. But he spent 3 years behind Rodgers. So that was only his sophomore year, 3 years behind Rodgers. He also had 5 rushes for 23 yards, so he's not immobile. I'd like to see what he has, but I'm putting my trust on this team in 2 guys specifically, and that's Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Aaron Jones going at a low ADP 40. It's lowest he's been in a while, running back 18. He was an RB11 finish quietly last year because he only had 2 rushing touchdowns. That being said, he did have 5 receiving touchdowns. So I like him again here. He's going to be a big part of the receiving game. He's also going to be the lead rusher on the team. A.J. Dillon himself, running back 33, 84th overall. He had RB26 finish, 770 yards, 7 touchdowns himself as well. But he only had 206 receiving yards, no touchdowns. So he's not as big in the passing game. He saw more while Aaron Jones was dealing with a couple little bumps and bruises here and there. Are you buying into Jones as a value, or do you think Jones's time in Green Bay is starting to fade away and we're going to be seeing more of a 50-50 split?
I mean, I think we've seen kind of more of a 50-50 split anyway, or maybe like a 60-40 split. And I think it's going to be close to that again. I think they're both really good. What I'll say is, even if it does go to a 50-50 split, this offense is not going to be throwing the ball 30, 40 times a game like it was with Rodgers. I think they're going to be running the ball a lot more. They're going to be focusing on running the ball a lot more. And I think that's going to help both of these guys. I like Aaron Jones. I think that both of these guys are going at value this year because you've seen the hit in ADP. Like Aaron Jones comes off last season and finishes as the RB11. And is now being drafted as RB18 for some reason. And they're going to rely on him more. And so, like, if volume's going to go up, you only like his productivity. Like, he's been a productive back in the league. And, you know, if he had 2 or 3 more touchdowns, he could have been a top 10 running back. So he only had 7 total touchdowns. He's heavily involved in the receiving game. He's a great back out of the backfield. We saw a lot last year where both of them were in the backfield at the same time. They're both really, really good players, and I think that they're going to be the best players on this team. I would agree with you. Their receiving core is just so young, and with Jordan Love and the inexperience, I can't see them going out there and just like hucking and chucking the ball. Like, you know, we'll get into the receivers, but in terms of Aaron Jones, like I really like his value where he's going because you're going to be able to get him in the 3rd round. He's like the guys are. I would rather have Aaron Jones over Jahmyr Gibbs, and Gibbs is going in front of him. And that I think is a shame. And I'll capitalize on that for sure if he's there in the 3rd. And A.J. Dillon going.
Well, he's running back 40. He's going 4th round right now.
Yeah,
he's going 4th round right now. And so, I mean, so you're kind of right. It was about a 50-50 split. It was 186 carries for A.J. Dillon at a 4.1 average, which was pretty much on par from his previous season. He had 187 the year before. I will say, the second highest total, though, for Aaron Jones was last year. He had 213. The only time he did it was in 2019, where he had 236. He had 171 the year before in 2021, but he missed 2 games, and he missed a couple the year before that with 201. So to me, I think that you're going to see a similar split. It's going to be probably 55-45 split, which is what we're looking at here. But I think Aaron Jones is clearly the best runner. He's a 5.1 career average yards per carry. And he's got the home run ability. A.J. Dillon had a couple big home runs. I think the biggest one he had was a 36-yarder in 2021. But Aaron Jones did that last year. He had a 57-yarder the year before, 77-yarder the year before that. So we're talking big numbers. And the touchdown regression is going to be positive progression, as I would say, from Aaron Jones here, because 2 is just tiny. I mean, maybe not from the goal line, but I think he's going to get himself in from the 15-10 yard line here. Let's talk about some other big time scorers. And Christian Watson last year, He's going at wide receiver 19, all off of a 4-week stretch where he was wide receiver 1, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 6, wide receiver 4. He ended up with 7 touchdowns, ended up as the wide receiver 25. Here's the thing for me at wide receiver 19, going 57 overall. You're talking that this is going to be somebody's second receiver on their squad. He had 6 receptions being his highest reception total in a single game all season. I don't like that. If I'm getting my wide receiver 2, I want somebody with some volume in there as well. And his teammate was the guy with the volume, and that was Romeo Doubs when he was healthy. He had a higher target volume prior to the injury per game than Christian Watson did. So he doesn't have the home run ability, but he's got the underneath. He's got the shorter routes. He's going to get the volume. And I can look it up real quick while you talk about which one you prefer to get on your team. But I believe Romeo Doubs had a better red zone target ratio as well compared to Christian Watson.
Well, the answer is Doubs. I want him on my team more than Watson. I think Watson's being drafted way too high based on a 4-week stretch that we saw him with a Hall of Fame quarterback throwing him the ball. And he could have had bigger numbers last year. He dropped a lot. The infamous first play of the season, drops a 75-yard touchdown against the Vikings. But it's just Doubs is going to be the volume guy. And even I like Jaden Reed a little bit more, but this is just kind of what I was alluding to before. Like, this team is really young at the receiving position. You have 2 second-year players in Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. You have a rookie in Jaden Reed. You have a rookie in Luke Musgrave. You have essentially, a first-time starter in Jordan Love as the thrower. I don't like the passing offense, and if I don't have to, I'm probably not going to take a Green Bay Packer that's a pass catcher, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with someone else grabbing Christian Watson and seeing him have a decent season, because I don't think he's going to have top 10 numbers. I don't think he has that ability, and I don't think Jordan Love has that ability. I don't think Romeo Doubs has that ability either. So am I going to be drafting a guy that's going to be a top 20 receiver? Yeah, maybe he's going to finish up as 18th, 19th, or 20th, but okay, I'll go get someone else. Like, I'd rather not deal with the headache of the unknown. Again, you have guys that are going, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are going around Christian Watson's value. And I'll take them any day.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's take a look at that real quick. So I stand corrected. Christian Watson was 8 for 13 for 4 touchdowns. Romeo Doubs did have a better catch percentage in the red zone. He was 6 for 8 for 3 touchdowns. But again, Christian Watson was in there pretty heavily for the most of the season. Romeo Doubs had some injury issues and missed some weeks. So I think in a full season that he tends to take away from the short yardage catches with Doubs, because he was making some highlight reel catches. So when you look at Watson, you got DeAndre Hopkins right now, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper. He's sandwiched between those 4 guys. I'd take any one of them over Christian Watson.
I would take any one of them over Christian Watson.
Terry McLaurin, he's probably drafted above. Jerry Jeudy above, Keenan Allen above. Like, he's going above all those guys.
I would take any of those guys over him.
Yeah, so I would too. Let's finish up with 2 players. One guy's a rookie coming in here. Somebody to watch in preseason is Jaden Reed. He's somebody who's very talented wide receiver, has a chance to break into 3 wide receiver sets. Again, you're facing 2 divisional opponents in the Vikings and the Lions. You may be playing from behind in Green Bay more than they're used to, and that may give him opportunities to go there. To me, Luke Musgrave is another one of those rookie tight ends that you can throw a dart at the wall, but to me, he's a better blocking tight end. He didn't have a big, prolific receiving career in college, but he was one of the heavy touted tight ends. I think this helps the running game more than anything. But we've known Tunyon was there. Tunyon was a great receiving tight end for them there. Who knows how they convert Musgrave? Yeah, Mercedes Lewis. They like their tight ends in Green Bay, and Musgrave is number 1 on the depth chart right now.
Big guy.
Big guy. Yeah. To me, the 3 guys I'm taking off this team are Jones, Dillon, Doubs, and I'm not looking back after that. I'm not going to try and take a chance on an unknown offense right now. I'd go for talent over those guys, and I'm only taking Doubs because he's 149th overall, wide receiver 59. He's a flex or bench player for me, really start bench, to be honest, to start. So
It's going to be crazy because I actually think that the Packers are going to be in last place in this division.
I think they could, even though they weren't last year.
And
I think there's a very good shot they can.
I think the Bears and them are both being projected by Vegas at 7.5 wins, and I think the Bears are a better team.
Well,
which we'll get into right now.
Well, but we'll go into the Bears. But before we get into the Bears, I do want to actually say one quick thing. Aaron Rodgers last year, he threw for 3,695, so 3,700 yards, right? 350 completions and 26 touchdowns. I'm just going to say it out loud. That's easy. I think that's an easy number to see Jordan Love end the same. 36, 3,700, 25 touchdowns. I mean, like, he's not going to throw for 4,000 yards. He's not going to throw for 30 touchdowns, but like, he could do the same thing Aaron Rodgers did last year. And they end up, with the record they did at 8-9, like that could put them in third place in the division still and keep the Bears in last. But I'm just saying, Love, I think people aren't giving Love enough love. And I think Aaron Rodgers had a downturn last year, but the numbers that Aaron Rodgers hit last year are very reachable for Jordan Love. That's all I'm saying. Moving on to Chicago.
Unreachable.
No, moving on to Chicago, 3-14. Vegas has them at 7.5, like you said. They were dead last in passing. So they obviously need to change that if they want to move that 3-14 record. But they were number 1 in rushing yardage and number 2 in attempts and number 1 in rushing average. So obviously the 7 yards plus per carry from Justin Fields helped to that average for sure. But Justin Fields going at QB7, 47th overall. Everybody's hoping that 2,200 yards he had passing last year and 17 touchdown number goes up, because I think you hit a ceiling at 1,100 yards rushing and 10 rushing touchdowns. So for him to finish at QB7, where you're drafting him at QB7, you gotta those passing numbers need to go up, because those rushing numbers are unreal. We see it with Lamar Jackson; they can't be repeated, mostly because of injury, but also it's very difficult because teams start to scheme you. And 10 rushing touchdowns is an awful lot. Now, Jalen Hurts can do it, but you shave off 500 yards from that, and you got Jalen Hurts. So that's where I could see him ending. I see him ending closer to the rushing season Jalen Hurts had, but can he pass for the 3,200, 1,000 more yards than Jalen Hurts did? He did it in college. He's got the arm to do it. He's got the talent, but does Chicago have the firepower around him and the talent to be able to do that outside of DJ Moore? So
yeah, I mean, we talked about it before, and we talked about third-year quarterbacks coming in and getting an elite weapon at wide receiver. And people can laugh at it. People can say what they want about DJ Moore, but he's an elite weapon in this league. And he's coming from a team that stunk throwing the ball too, and he was still an elite weapon and a wide receiver 1 there. So, Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs, Jalen Hurts got A.J. Brown, and you had Tua get Tyreek Hill, and look at what they did in their third year. And so, you said it, Justin Fields could throw. We saw it from him in college. We saw what he can do. We saw it last year. He threw accurate balls down the field last year. His receivers could not catch the ball.
Well, he did overthrow Darnell Mooney multiple times. I wouldn't say he threw it accurately.
Sure.
He did have some, but again, I can't recollect which games they were. They could have been early on in the season. But that being said, he's proven in college he could throw the deep ball for sure. I'm not knocking Justin Fields' passing ability. I was knocking the receiving game of the Chicago Bears last year, like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, Mooney's a good receiver. He's a good number 2 receiver, and now he can play number 2. And DJ Moore is going to be the number 1. It puts him back in, into the number 2 role. It puts Claypool into the slot and as a number 3, or Mooney into the slot and Claypool on the outside. However they want to do it, DJ Moore is going to come in there and be the receptions leader, and I think it's going to help out Justin Fields a lot. I don't know if it's hard to say that. It's very hard to say that 1,100 yards is going to be, he's going to top that. But
yeah, I agree. It's very difficult to get to 1,200 yards like Lamar Jackson.
He could.
I'm not saying he can't, but if he does,
he's thicker than Lamar Jackson now.
You're losing passer. Yeah, but he also took more hits than Lamar Jackson took too. Jackson's shiftier.
Yeah.
and he's a little more
Yeah.
explosive. Like Fields reminds me of a little bit smaller version of Hurts. Like he can still get it done. Don't get me wrong. He's going to have those 75-yard rushing games, this and that, but you're going to have 100-yard rushing games to go for 1,100 yards again. And if you're going to have success through the air, something's going to give, and it's going to be your rushing yardage. That being said, when it comes to red zone threat, and this is him and Hurts are are probably the top two next to Josh Allen that are going to be those quarterback red zone threats that are going to be able to sneak in and get you the ball. Now let's talk about the hydra that we have at the running back position here in Chicago. You cut one head off with David Montgomery, and you get two with Khalil Herbert and Devonta Foreman, and some question marks there. Obviously, Khalil Herbert, I think, is going to get the first shot at this, but I'm not necessarily convinced that it's going to be a one running back system here, that I think it's going to be, they're going to use multiple different running backs. I mean, last year, Herbert only had 129 carries with Montgomery, similar situation, Devonta Foreman being the bigger guy too, as well. He did have one game where he had 20 rushes and he had 157 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was RB1 Khalil Herbert last year, but Devonta Foreman had 3 top 7 finishes last year as well, when he came in for Carolina after Christian McCaffrey was shipped off to the 49ers. So these are both good running backs. And let's not forget the QB dual threat that came into Texas that was converted to a running back in Roschon Johnson. Yeah, he's dealing with a little bit of injury currently right now in training camp, but this guy is a awesome breaking tackle, shifty, elusive running back that can add another thing to this entire offense. So I'm not saying he's going to be a 3-headed monster, but I don't be surprised if you see Devonta Foreman in on the field a little bit more than you're expecting for people who are drafting Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. Khalil Herbert's going to get the first shot at this. I think he kind of earned that in his roles the last couple of years, where he's been productive when he's been in there and had to spell David Montgomery. I think bringing in Devonta Foreman was a smart move. You get a veteran that has some is a very capable running back. They didn't have to spend a lot of money bringing him in, and then you have a rookie in Roschon Johnson, who I think that they're going to let him develop a little bit. I think that they're going to let him come into his own. But you're right; they have 3 weapons there. But I still prioritize it in that order: is Khalil Herbert first, Devonta Foreman, then Roschon. Roschon is a guy that's more dynasty for me. I don't think he's going to make a huge impact this year. I think because they brought in Devonta Foreman, I think this is the last year of Khalil Herbert's contract.
He's a 6th round running back too. So,
yeah,
that there's not a lot invested in him.
Yeah, so they're gonna run him, and I think that this is the same thing we talk about when we talked about the Ravens. And you want a piece of this backfield because of what Justin Fields is able to do. So with the RPO and the way that Fields is dynamic as a runner, it's going to create that hesitation, that 1 or 2 second hesitation for the running back to be able to break free. I think Khalil Herbert and Devonta Foreman, whoever is going to kind of split the carries there, and whoever's going to be in, is going to benefit from that. So these guys, you don't have to go and draft like heavy. These are probably going to be your RB3 or flex play, but you should want one of these too. Absolutely. Yeah. And because they can be, if Khalil Herbert comes in and becomes a volume guy and is having a really good season, that could be a guy that is very, very valuable on your team. If Devonta Foreman kind of takes over the role, they're going 5 picks with from each other. So it's not like there's a huge difference.
A reason.
I think the consensus is that they're going to be right there. I think I like the running back situation here. I think that they have depth there at that position. And it's not going to be all volume one guy, which I think, ticks off a lot of fantasy football guys because they just want to be like, who's the guy in Chicago? Like, I just want to get the guy. That's not the way it works for a lot of these teams. For a lot of these guys that are rebuilding, who have these 6-round running backs and who have depth at the position, they don't have to go and spend a lot of money, and they can use a 3-headed monster there. I mean, we're going to see it this year with Philadelphia, even with Penny and DeAndre Swift and Gainwell. Like, most teams do not have a stable running back. So, you hope that the guy, and that's why they're being drafted in the 5th and 6th round, because they're not going to be the guy that's going to get heavy volume.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I'm going with Herbert or Foreman if I really want a running back from this offense. I'm not saying I do, because really the guy who's probably going to finish with the most yardage on the team is probably going to be Justin Fields, or at least similar yardage to these other guys. Let's not forget Deontay Foreman, when he was drafted in Houston, he played behind Lamar Miller, and Lamar Miller had an okay season the year Deontay Foreman was there in 2017, but he tore his Achilles and ended up not coming back to Houston, went to Tennessee, backed up Derrick Henry, had a couple decent showings here and there, but he showed out, I think, last year with the Panthers. I mean, he had 200 attempts for 914 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. Now, he's not a receiving guy. So I think you're going to see him, when you do, on more short yardage, some, later on games to give breathers. And who knows, again, I don't think anybody's earned this role as RB1, but obviously Khalil Herbert's got the first shot at it. Let's talk about the receiving core here, because there's 3 big names on this offense, which one of them possibly, honestly, could be at the end of the training camp, may not even be a Chicago Bear. We'll see what happens with Chase Claypool. But DJ Moore, coming from Carolina, having decent years in Carolina, is now all of a sudden in Chicago. Last year being his worst year in Carolina, to be honest, had 63 catches for 888 yards. Let's see, 3 out of the 4 last weeks were his best of the whole season. He was wide receiver 11, wide receiver 8, and wide receiver 4. So there was a shining moment for him at the end of the year in Carolina, but I think everybody kind of had a feeling mid-season that his numbers in Carolina were up, that he was going somewhere else at some point.
Yep.
Chicago is a place where he automatically still remains the number 1. But in my opinion, does his role, and this is my question to you, in Chicago really change from what it was in Carolina? Does his potential truly change? He's always been a 1,000-yard receiver and been around that 4 or 5 touchdown. I think last year was the first time he went over 4 or 5 touchdowns with 7. What's your thought here? Are you buying into the DJ Moore hype? Is he finally going to have his wide receiver 1 finish, not 1 overall, but wide receiver 1 finish? Or is he going to be DJ Moore, wide receiver 2, underwhelming as he has been his entire career?
Well, I mean, you're drafting him as a number 2. So I think that's what you're going to get from him. He's not going to be, this wide receiver 1 that's going to be a top 12 receiver in the league, but you're drafting him as being a top 20 or right around that. And
he's a wide receiver 20.
And I think that's exactly what you can expect from him. I think I really do think that in the 3rd year, when you get an elite talent, which DJ Moore is an elite talent, he's never been on a team that likes to throw the ball. And you look at a lot of these guys, and when these good wide receivers are stuck on teams that can't throw the ball or have a bad offense or run first teams, like their numbers don't show and accurately reflect who they are. And so I don't think it's fair to say, DJ Moore is like, what quarterback has he had there that's really been lighting things up? Baker Mayfield. We know historically Baker Mayfield cannot sustain deep ball receivers. And DJ Moore can go and win the deep ball. We've seen it on Hail Marys. We've seen it at ends of games. Like, he can go up there and win it. So I think this is going to really benefit Justin Fields a lot. And I think that the touchdown numbers are going to go up. I think he's still around that 8 touchdown mark. And I think that's realistic for him. I think around 1,000 yards. And, can he reach 1,500 yards? No, I don't think so. Can he reach 1,300 yards? Very unlikely. But can he get 1,100 yards? Sure. Like, I think that's very realistic for him.
That's been his ceiling.
That is gonna. Yeah, but you're drafting him as that. Like, again, if you're drafting him to be a 1,400-yard guy, and you'd be drafting him in the 2nd round, right? In the first and 2nd round.
Well, the only thing I will say about DJ Moore, so you're right about the quarterback play. Cam Newton would have been there in 2020 for him, and
dead arm.
He ended up having that foot injury, and he never came back. He went to the Patriots after that and everything there. But 2019, Cam Newton, it was 2019. 2020 was Teddy Bridgewater. 2018, he had Cam Newton, but he was a rookie that season. He only got 55 receptions. So he only finished with 788 yards. But here's the problem that I see with DJ Moore, and this is the thing that's a sticking point for me and my argument against him year after year, and which is why I've always avoided him after that 2019 season is he has yet to have a 100-catch season as a wide receiver one. And yet he is getting massive amounts of targets every single season. We're talking 135, 118, 163, 118. And he's not even getting like the closest he was with the 163 targets. And he had 93 catches. I mean, that to me, if you want to be a wide receiver one in this NFL league, you get 163 targets, you better catch 120 of those things. You know what I mean? So
I mean, the number 2 off most people's board had that numbers last year, and people still drafting them. Jamar Chase.
Yeah, exactly.
You
So
know,
it does what I'm saying. So
143 targets, only 82 receptions. So, yeah, I mean, I get the argument for DJ Moore, but my counter argument to that is that you're not drafting him to be Jamar Chase. You're not drafting him to be a first round wide receiver. So is he answer me this. Is he the best wide receiver on that team?
Yes, he's the best wide receiver on the team. Yeah. But again,
is he going to help Justin Fields develop as a thrower?
He should. Well, here's the question. Is he really going to? And this is what I want to ask everybody out there listening. When you've got a 57% completion percentage with 163 targets, yeah, I'm not assuming all those are catchable balls, but that being said, 163 targets, like that is not somebody making your quarterback better, in my opinion, especially in 2021 when you're looking at the quarterback play that he was having. I mean, even at 118 targets the year before, he only had 66 receptions. Like his 135 the year before in 2019, he had 87 catches. Like those totals, like he's pretty much at a 50% catch percentage. You go and look at all the wide receiver ones on their teams and how much more they catch the ball for their quarterbacks. That's what scares me. I guarantee, like I haven't looked it up yet, but I'll pull it up while you're talking here a little bit about Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool. But I guarantee you Chase Claypool probably has a better catch percentage over his career than DJ Moore has. I guarantee you he does. I will.
Look it up quickly because I won't spend too much time on Claypool and Mooney. Claypool, don't want him part of. Mooney, I would go and draft at his ADP. I think that, again, he's now coming out of the number 1 role and going into a number 2 role. He is a dynamic playmaker, especially what he can do on the short yardage, just get the ball into his hands and let him do the rest. I think DJ Moore being on the other side is going to help him out. And I think that they have to, again, if this team is going to be effective, they're going to have to throw the ball. They can't rely on Justin Fields to run for 1,100 yards every season on this. So, those are my thoughts on them. Like I want nothing to do with anyone else on this receiving core other than DJ Moore and then Darnell Mooney much later.
All right, so Chase Claypool and DJ Moore are pretty equal. 59% career catch percentage for DJ Moore, 57 for Claypool, but it was a 48% in Chicago last year with the way that passing game was. He had 64% coming over from Pittsburgh till he got traded. So again, this is the concern I have for Justin Fields is the weapons he has behind him. You're not having the hands of Justin Jefferson. You're not having the hands of Cooper Kupp. You're not having the hands of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith and AJ Brown. These guys who are sure-handed guys that are going to really help your team out, where they're not even D-Hop, where you can throw a ball around him and he's going to catch the ball. Like these guys are going to have to get open, and Justin Fields is going to have to be an accurate passer for this to be a successful offense on the field. And that's my concern with this team. Cole Kmet is probably the best guy, the best receiver on the team last year. He had 50 receptions, 544 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Obviously, at the tight end position, he didn't do the volume that DJ Moore had, but he did better than Mooney and Claypool last year. And Claypool also, don't forget, was not there the entire time. So I think Claypool full season would have been much better. However, he had 2 weeks where he had multiple touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, and 5 weeks where he was at the tight end 11 or better. And 2 of them, he was tight end 1. So he's another guy who's kind of at the top of that list with Dulcich and those guys on, if you miss the big top tiers. Here's one of the first guys you're going to try and grab off the board. But again, there's so many down there. Any of them could hit.
I mean,
you just like the fact that they paid this man. They paid this man the money. So sometimes money talks, sometimes money plays. But still, at the end of the day,
you're not going to do a really bad Russian accent with that.
No, pay this man his money.
Pay him.
Pay him.
Pay this man his money. What are you doing?
Speaking of the cold, let's talk about Minnesota. Minnesota Vikings 13-4 last year. They were amazing. They barely won 13 games a bunch of times. They pulled it out by the skin of their teeth a couple times against the Giants and the Colts specifically. Vegas has them at 8.5 because they don't believe they can repeat those close victories. That being said, Kirk Cousins going 107th overall, QB 13, like we said earlier, around that Goff range. He was QB 6 finished last year. He had over 4,500 yards and 29 touchdowns. The fact that Justin Jefferson finished the season with 8 touchdowns as the wide receiver 1, and Kirk Cousins only threw 29 touchdowns. No more Dalvin Cook. I think Kirk finishes better than he did last year. I think he goes for 4,500 yards again, but I think he throws for like 32, 33 touchdowns. And I think Jefferson is the beneficiary of that too, because that was a low number for Jefferson. Cook was a monster through the air and a monster on the ground. And I don't think Madison's going to be able to repeat that. So I like Cousins. Cousins is one of those last guys in the group that I'm willing to take a shot on because of pure volume from this team. They were one of the top. They were number 2 in passing yards last year, and they were number 3 in attempts last year. Only the Chargers and Buccaneers threw more than them. And the beauty of this team was they had a massive amount of first downs. They had more first downs than those other 2 teams there. First down percentage was higher through the air. They had 50, 20 plus yard plays, 10, 40 plus yard plays through the air. He only threw 15 picks. I just love Kirk Cousins. He's just steady Eddie, and he's white bread. He's toast. I mean, he's nothing special. But you put a little Justin Jefferson jam on there, and you got yourself a quarterback that finishes in the top 10 year after year.
Or you get some Jordan Addison Nutella. You get some KJ Osborne peanut butter. You get some
exactly.
You get some TJ Hawkinson banana. You got yourself a sandwich. You got yourself a sandwich here.
The weapons are unbelievable. He may have four of the best weapons across the board.
Yeah, I mean the pass catchers are great here. And you're right. Like they get rid of Dalvin Cook and Madison, and this running back core is not Dalvin Cook. And this was such a shame because like I really think they should have, like, this is a running back you pay and get Dalvin. You pay this guy, and if I were the Vikings, tuck your tail between your legs and go get him again. I'd love him to go to the Jets, but I mean, it's such a stable because a lot of things that they're able to do off the pass were because of what Dalvin's able to do as a running back. And those first downs he's able to get on screen passes. He was a great receiver out of the backfield as well. That being said, they have more weapons around him as pass catchers. I think that having KJ Osborne as the number 3, Jordan Addison as the number 2, and Justin Jefferson, obviously the best receiver in football. I think that really is going to help out Kirk Cousins for sure. But this offense is going to be much different without Dalvin. I mean, it's been a while since we've seen this offense without Dalvin. And I don't think Alexander Madison's the answer, even though people want to say, look at the times that he replaced, Dalvin Cook for a game here, a game there. And look at the numbers that he had fantasy wise. Like, he was super inefficient as a runner. And he got in the end zone because, again, this passing offense is good. It's really, really good. But he's inefficient as a runner. And how does that translate into moving the sticks for this offense? And so is it all going to be on Kirk Cousins? Like, they better hope they don't have a lot of primetime games either. Maybe that's why they have them at 8 wins, is because they might have like 4 or 5 primetime games.
I haven't looked at it. I could look that up. But here's the thing. I like Kirk Cousins. We'll move on from Cousins. we'll move on from Cousins. I think Cousins is a good quarterback. Again, if you don't get these top guys, you could get him at value, and a guy who finished QB6 last year that I think is going to try and mirror his output, if not, have more touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about this man. He's wide receiver one, number one overall. He's number one in our hearts. I mean, the guy had 14.1 fantasy points per game in standard, 21.6 in PPR. He has had an increase, and this is the crazy stat for him. He's had an increase from his rookie year to last year of 20 receptions each season, and almost exactly 20 receptions, by the way, but almost exactly 200 yards as well. So it just goes to show that this man is going to have an opportunity to have 20 more receptions and 200 more yards and get himself to that 2,000-yard mark that only a few guys have a chance to reach in this league. Now, in terms of the other two wide receivers out there, I think KJ Osborne has the first dibs at the wide receiver 2 position, and I think he's earned it. He had some fantastic games last year. He had ended up with 5 touchdowns, 650 yards. He had a couple, I think he had a 2-touchdown game as well last year. Ended up wide receiver 44 for a guy who only had 650 yards, which is pretty darn good. And Jordan Addison, 23rd overall pick. They're not going to waste him by sitting him around. He'll work himself into that offense. And like we said before, the fact that there's no Cook and you've got Madison's 25 years old, but at the end of the day, Madison still, can he match the 264 carries that Dalvin Cook had last year in 17 games? Can he match the 312, from 2 years prior, or 249? I think with the offense they had last year, you're going to see a heavy pass volume offense, and they're probably going to sieve maybe 30 carries and be 30 more passes. And I don't think Madison's, going to be as big in the passing game. I think Addison's going to be on the field to replace, and he'll be there for pass blocking. So I think that's something you got to watch. And you can't forget about TJ Hawkinson. So I like KJ Osborne. He's going wide receiver 63. He's going as the wide receiver 3 for this team because everybody wants the shiny new object. And you're going to spend 86 overall pick on Jordan Addison, wide receiver 37. You can get KJ Osborne for free in your most of your leagues right now. So I like him as an opportunity to get him late because the value is going to be there. He's going to get his. He's going to be a flex play for you in a bench stash. And if he ends up being a true wide receiver 2 there, you're the beneficiary of making a great choice late in your draft.
Well, so I'll say a couple things on that is we don't need to talk about Justin Jefferson, but Jordan Addison, I think, is going to be the number 2 there. And he's going to get that really early in the season. He's a more talented KJ Osborne. What I'll say about KJ Osborne, though, is he might be one of the better bench stashes that you can draft. So if you have an extra bench spot that you're just trying to fill up your bench, draft KJ Osborne. Because if anything happened to Justin Jefferson or Addison or TJ Hawkinson, they're going to have to throw the ball. And because there's no Dalvin Cook there. So they're going to have to throw the ball. And he's going to be a recipient of that. He's talented enough. There's all these pass catchers are talented. But I would probably still take Addison over him, and I would take Addison at his grade. I think he's going to – why would you not want a number 2? Think of what Adam Thielen was doing across from Justin Jefferson, not last year, but the year before.
The year before that, yeah.
Yeah. So
the only thing I like about Osborne is as a better red zone threat than Addison. I think Addison's a better route runner. He's a crisper route runner, but KJ Osborne's got the size. I think Hawkinson and Osborne are going to. The problem. Really, the biggest thing is Justin Jefferson is got the monopoly on this offense in terms of receptions, and he was number 1 in red zone targets last year. It's going to continue that way. It's just a matter of. You don't want to try and say, I'm going to try and hit this, KJ Osborne or Addison and make the right pick there. I don't think you could go wrong at getting him at their values. And same thing with TJ Hawkinson, who's going tight end 3 and 44th overall. And he himself, he was tight end 4 last year at a finish, 2nd in targets for tight ends, 2nd in receptions for tight ends, and 2nd in yardage for tight ends last year. He had 6 top 10 tight end finishes, and all of those were career highs for him going to Minnesota. So Love it for him. Obviously, he's the beneficiary of having Justin Jefferson over top of you. He's the one who almost took on that Adam Thielen role last year a little bit more when Adam Thielen was out. But I do agree with you. I think Hawkinson is going to still get his in terms of targets and receptions and yardage, and it's probably going to go up from last year because he's going to be a Viking for the full season. I like Hawkinson, but I think Hawkinson has a ceiling due to the fact that he does have Justin Jefferson in the offense with him compared to some of the other tight ends that are around him, where they're more or less the number one or the definite number two target on the offense. But I love Hawkinson. I've always liked him.
We kind of talked about it like a week or two ago where none of the Brock Purdy news came out that Brock Purdy is going to be back like fully healthy and he's going to be back week 1. Kittle jumped him in my rankings, so Kittle's now my number 3. Hawkinson drops to my number 4. But I've talked about this is my cutoff. After this, it's a crapshoot. So after Hawkinson,
that's where we differ.
What? That is a crapshoot?
That's a crapshoot. I mean, to me, I don't know how you could say that when, and we haven't talked about the NFC East yet, but when Darren Waller is going to be the pseudo number 1 pass catcher in New York Giants, how do you not say that he's got the highest pathway? No, we do know that. There's no way around it. They've already seen it in training camp. They had to take him off the field because Daniel Jones was passing everything to him. But I digress. That being said, I agree with you, TJ Hawkinson. He's in my top 5. The guy's a fantastic receiving tight end. He has been his entire career. He was drafted in the first round for a reason. So, Minnesota Vikings.
I mean, one other guy.
Go ahead.
There's one other guy I want to kind of mention here is, especially in dynasty leagues, if you're in a sleeper league or if you're in a keeper league with late round keepers, draft Dwayne McBride.
Yeah,
I think he's going to have an impact on this team. I think that Madison is not going to be able to sustain this kind of workload for the entire season. And I think Dwayne McBride is a rookie that they brought in that is going to be like, again, this is a pass heavy offense. They're not facing stacked boxes, and I think he's going to have a chance to shine in this offense. So keep an eye on him. If you have with him and KJ Osborne, if you have some open slots at the end of the draft, go and stash these guys on your bench.
All right. 8.5. Vegas has them. I could see the over in that situation. Just because I don't think the defenses in this division got enough better. You can argue that Chicago is going to win more games because their offense is better, but I could argue that this offense is the best offense in the division. And even if they split with Detroit because of a shootout one game, it's very difficult for the other teams to do it. So smash the over on that one. And real quick before we finish up with the NFC North, late breaking news as of 33 minutes ago, if not 20 minutes ago, Yannick Ngakoue and the Bears agreed to a 1-year, $10 million contract. So he is going to bolster that defense. I think it's a great signing. I was hoping that was going to be one of the guys the Giants went after. They decided to pay somebody a little bit more at their linebacker position. So news there for the Chicago Bears. Thanks for tuning in. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button